You're listening to the Plate Podcast.
Hi, welcome to the Plate Podcast. My name is TR Vivek and I am the editor of The Plate, a platform that helps you understand India from the farm to plate. Recently, a Bangalore based NGO called The Nudge, which is engaged in eradicating poverty by creating sustainable livelihoods, has come up with a report assessing the efficacy of natural farming practices. Today I am joined by Ankur Sanghai to discuss that report, and Ankur is the lead author of that report. Hi Ankur and welcome to the Plate Podcast.
Hi Vivek, thanks a lot for inviting me here.
Ankur, before we start off, what exactly is natural farming and how is it fundamentally different from organic farming, or are they same and we can use them interchangeably?
No, technically both are different concepts. Natural farming is a agri cultivation system which involves minimal human intervention and using farm inputs which are made at the farmland itself, using all the residues found on the farmland from livestock and from plants. That is natural farming, and using some sustainable methods such as intercropping, mulching, which is like covering the soil covering, etc. Organic farming includes all the aspects of natural farming, and in addition it also includes the usage of organic molecules which are prepared from plant, which is vegetation, and animal waste in a lab or in a factory. So it also allows to use that, which is not as part of natural farming. Both the techniques prohibit the use of synthetic inputs which are made from chemicals, etc. So this is the major difference between them.
When you say natural farming uses material from the farm, from within the farm, what would those materials be? What does a farm produce? Are we here talking about, say, cow dung and cow urine and fallen leaves and rotten produce?
You're exactly correct. So farmers in a farmland, they have access to cattle. So all the cattle residues such as cow dung, cow urine. Secondly, all the vegetation leftovers such as leaves found in the farm, compost, etc. All these are taken together, and with some external additions such as jaggery or lime, various kinds of natural inputs are prepared which are used in natural farming. So it's all these stuff. The main theory is all these things, raw materials, can be found in the farmland itself and basically in the village itself.
Ankur, so when as consumers we encounter something in a retail store which says organic or naturally produced, we can assume both of them are pretty much the same from a consumer perspective?
From a consumer perspective, you can assume both to be the same, because the consumer's aspect is like minimal chemicals should have been used in the production of that output. Right. So both theories support that. Right. One more point I would like to mention over here, because organic farming also promotes uses of these organic molecules, so it tends to be a little more expensive because the farmer needs to purchase those. Right. As compared to natural farming.
Right. Another question from a consumer perspective is, why are these things so expensive? Why are organic or naturally produced chemical-free products so expensive?
Yeah, very important question and very common question among the masses over here. So one thing I would like to mention before, when we started looking into this space, we looked in both the demand side and the supply side. Demand side are the organizations, the distributors and the food companies which actually procure these outputs from the farmer and which supply or sell to us, consumers like us. And supply side is the farming system where the farmer is procuring inputs and cultivating the whole produce. So first we went into the demand side to understand like why are these produce expensive and all. So then what we understood is that the economies of scale are just not there right now, because natural or organic farming is happening in such a small scale in the country that procuring these produce in the niche locations throughout India, there's a cost associated with it. And today the demand is also not that high for this kind of a produce, because of which the pricing is passed, the cost of this procuring this kind of produce is passed on to the consumer in the form of premium pricing. And once we come on the supply side, which is the farmer, there are some drawbacks of natural farming or some downsides which the farmer needs to bear, and because of which he also requires this premium pricing to compensate for that.
What are these downsides? What do you mean downsides? You mean to say that there are some challenges inherent to organic farming or natural farming practices?
Yeah, there are few challenges which we also encountered in our study as well. The first is the drop in yield. Yield basically is like how much you are producing in your farm. So let's say a per acre produce. So there's a drop in yield in the first year itself, which is majorly encountered. And in our survey, more than 50% of the farmers said that during the first year of transitioning from conventional farming to natural farming, they encountered a yield drop, substantial yield drop in the first year, and which takes around 3 to 5 years to recover to reach the same level as conventional farming yield, depending on region to region and farmer to farmer. So now this needs to be compensated for, and premium pricing is something which helps compensate for this.
So you mean to say that when more and more farmers, if there are more organic farmers, the prices would drop. If there is more organic produce in the market, the prices would start to drop.
One way can be to say that. Second is also like to find ways how can the farmer be compensated, either direct compensation or some other methodologies which can be used, which we have also highlighted in our report, such as multi-cropping, etc., which can help him alleviate the risks associated with yield with respect to natural farming. On the second side, like I spoke about the demand side, where today only very niche players are involved in procuring and selling natural or organic outputs. Once we have bigger organizations in that play, more economies of scale coming into that, then we can presume that the pricing for the customer will start going down, because once the quantity starts rising, the prices starts going down, normal economies of scale.
Tell us about your survey. How many farmers did you study for this report? How was the survey structured? How many farmers? How many states? And what kind of crops did you study?
Yeah. So our study entailed 215 natural farmers and 189 conventional farmers, because we also wanted to compare.
Conventional farmers are those who are using chemicals and pesticides.
Yeah, the normal practices which they have been doing for the last decade or so. Right. They were our conventional farmer group. We did this study in 3 states, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, with 5 organizations, RYSS, SPS, Region, Pradhan and DCL, and across like 7 to 8 regions. And in each region we had approximately 40 to 50 natural farmers and a similar number of conventional farmers, to address what are the challenges they are facing and what are the and to see what is the impact of natural farming on their income, etc. That's how we designed the survey. Secondly, the crops involved were also a little bit different. Like in Andhra Pradesh we studied groundnut, in Madhya Pradesh we studied wheat, gram and chili, and in UP we again studied chili with our partner over there. Right. So these were the divisions of the crop.
Ankur, what was the purpose of this study, and what did you find? Could you tell us something about the top line findings of this report?
Yeah, so I have to go a little bit into the history of it. So I am part of a team here called Transforming Agriculture for Smallholder Farmers, and we started the program with first trying to understand a smallholder farmer, what is his definition, what is his profile. Then we started moving into that, okay, the objective was how can we improve the incomes of this farmer. So we started figuring down solutions or agriculture practices which are good for the farmer as well as good for the environment. The reason environment came into the picture was that when we started profiling this farmer, a whooping 68% of the farmers in our survey told us that they are impacted by climate change, and almost 70% of them had crop losses because of inclement weather. So then once we started looking into these solutions, after doing a lot of primary and secondary research, we zeroed down 13 solutions which we call agri-ikigai solutions, which are agri practices which are good for the farmer and good for the environment. These include practices such as direct seeding of rice, crop diversification, etc., etc. So then the objective moved in, then we transitioned into, okay, let's try to pilot these practices or to study these practices on the ground. So first we studied direct seeding rice during last Kharif, and during this Rabi season of 23-24, we went into studying natural farming. And the objective was again that as per our understanding and secondary research, we had come to understand that, okay, this is a practice which helps improve the incomes of the farmer as well as it improves the environment as well. It has a positive impact on the environment. That's why we went into the ground to study the impact of this practice.
What did you find? Is natural farming working for farmers?
Yeah. So for the regions we surveyed, what we found was that the net income of the farmers increased by an average 25% for natural farmers as compared to conventional farmers, as well as their total cost of cultivation went down by 24%. Yes, almost majority of them said that their yields went down in the first year, but a bulk of them were able to recover their yields within 3 to 5 years. And overall what we found was that the yields in natural and conventional farming for the population we covered was almost the same. There was a difference of almost like only like 2 to 3%. So what we felt like that yes, it has yielded positive results for the farmers we surveyed. However, there was some however, there was some points to note as well. First of all, a bulk of these farmers transitioned to natural farming only for self-consumption. That is, they were using natural methods only for producing fresh produce for their self-consumption, not for what they are selling in the market. For what they are selling in the market, they are still using conventional methods, and this may be due to the downsides we spoke of, such as yields, etc. And second was that availability of this inputs, what we spoke about, the farm inputs, and the time and effort required to prepare them was a big bottleneck for these farmers, because they felt that it required too much of effort and time to produce these inputs required in natural farming.
So yeah, because the natural farmer has to produce all the inputs like
Himself or herself.
pesticides and fertilizers by themselves,
Yes,
right?
yes.
They cannot go and buy it off the shelf.
Yes, yes, yes.
And what is this transition period that you talk about in natural farming? Could you explain how that works?
So normally what these ground organizations do, first they use their normal playbook where they have a community resource person, a field person who tries to promote natural farming or any such sustainable intervention in the village. Then they get a few farmers interested in that. Then they ask the farmer to deploy this intervention only a small percentage of their farm.
What is this transition period that people talk about when it comes to natural farming or organic farming? Does this transition period mean that the farmer grows nothing on his holding and he is basically incomeless for a certain period of time?
So this transition period refers to the period when the farmer decides to become a natural farmer and move away from his conventional farming techniques, until the time he is able to achieve the same level of yield on his particular piece of farmland which he was getting while he was using conventional farming techniques. And this period, as per our study, ranges between 3 to 5 years depending on region and farmer to farmer. Now during this period, the farmer is doing cultivation in the particular piece of land. The only difference is he is using this natural farming techniques, he is using naturally prepared inputs, he is using other sustainable techniques such as intercropping, mulching, etc. And he is just not using synthetically produced inputs in that particular piece of farmland. This is the only difference. And as per the survey, there is a drop in yield which he suffers, and slowly it starts to recover.
Is there some kind of certification that the farmer needs to get, once he turns into a natural farmer?
Yeah, there are certifications which are basically for organic farm produce, and today the term is again used a bit interchangeably, and these certifications can be need to be procured by the farmer in order to certify his produce as organic produce. And again, it has some processes around it which the farmer needs to fulfill, and in these cases sometimes the FPOs, which are farmer producer collectives, comes into play, who help the farmers to get those certifications.
So how soon can a natural farmer get a certification of being a natural farmer? Is it after year 1, or does he wait for 3 or 4 years after he practices those methods for a considerable period of time?
It has to be for some time, like 3 to 5 years, and the reason is that the produce needs to show no traces of these residues, synthetic residues. So it takes some amount of time.
So the chemicals have to completely disappear from the soil for it to be certified as,
or not appear while testing, because it can be below the minimum levels, threshold levels.
Right. What were the other findings? Did farmer livelihoods increase, or was the increase in farm incomes only a matter of the input costs going down because there is no substantial increase in yield, as you were pointing out?
Yeah, the cost of cultivation went down by around 25%, and in addition, because natural farming promotes supplementary practices such as multi-cropping, intercropping, and even some of our partners were promoting orchard farming along with it, the farmers were able to reap good benefits out of it if you practice the whole suite of practices. And Based on some studies also, the cost of cultivation for the inputs all goes down drastically. So that's also a substantial savings for the farmer.
Right. Another question that comes to mind when thinking about natural farming is the recent example of Sri Lanka. Whenever organic farming or natural farming comes up for debate, we have that example of a complete national catastrophe when the government decided that overnight it would ban the use of chemicals or synthetic chemicals in agriculture. Is that a red flag for any policymaker who advocates a course of natural farming?
A very interesting perspective. And the way we also see natural farming, we don't see it in the purest form where you are not applying any chemicals, no pesticides. The way we are also seeing is that it's a journey. The desirable goal is that, but it's not a short term or even a medium term goal. And in our study also what we saw is that especially for cultivating fruits and vegetables, managing pests becomes very difficult with natural farming, and you have to start using pesticides at a initial or later stage, because only then you are able to control pests to a certain extent. So we are not saying that the goal is that be pure chemical free. What we are trying to say is that it's a journey. Start using these sustainable practices which leads you transition into that journey. That's what we are trying to say. And in fact, in our study also, all our partners were not like practicing natural farming in their purest form. Some were even practicing NPM, which is more like a pesticide management rather than fertilizer management. So they were promoting less chemical pesticides.
Of course, there are legitimate questions about the impact of agriculture on environment and climate change. I get that, but doesn't this idea that you can just manage everything, this complex ecosystem, agriculture ecosystem or biological system, by just using chana and good and fallen leaves and rotten fruits and cow dung and cow urine, when we see internationally trillions of dollars are spent on agriculture research.
Yeah.
If it is so simple, then are these large companies taking us for a royal ride?
No, I would say that will be a stretch to say that. What I would say is that in regions which are really suffering with indebtedness of the farmers, and they are more into cereals and grains and not too much into like fruits and vegetables, these are practices which can be started and which can be promoted over there. At the same time, we are also not saying that, like I said in the last question, that we are not promoting pure chemical free farming, because that is something which will start impacting the yields, which we already discussed about. So it's a journey, it's a transition phase, and at the same time there's an evolution period also. So like I told you that organic farming involves organic molecules. So you will see many of these input companies transitioning or bringing up organic inputs into play, which will act as an add-on for the natural farming. So I would say it's a segment where both of these will coexist, and which will be applicable for the particular kind of crops, farmers, regions where it makes sense.
Would it be fair to say that natural farming or organic farming is perhaps more suitable for farmers in absolute distress, where they don't have the means to invest in regular inputs, in commercially available inputs?
To certain extent we can say that, because in the study also which we did, the areas where natural farming picked up were in the regions where farmers were suffering a lot due to inclement weather or other reasons. They were into deep cycles of indebtedness, or regions where there was a big prevalence of diseases like cancer in one of the regions where the community was suffering. So they themselves were readily accepting natural farming practices because it helped them to eat better. So yeah, you can say that in these kind of regions natural farming may find more takers.
Right. And what are the environmental benefits that farmers reported after adopting natural farming practices?
So almost more than 90% of the farmers, they said that their irrigation requirements came down, as well as their earthworm activity increased. So as we practice natural farming, what happens is the organic content of the soil improves, which helps in more retention of water in the soil, and thus the water requirement by irrigation goes down. At the same time, almost like 40% reported that their crops were more greener as compared to what they were noticing earlier. And around 60 to 70% of the farmers said that their soil was more loose now, which helps in propagation of the roots deeper into the earth. So we noticed very many environmental beneficial factors after speaking to these farmers.
Is natural farming a bit like how Ayurveda is in India, where we take Ayurvedic medicines because we believe that it has no side effects. The advocates of modern medicine would say that this really lacks any scientific evidence in terms of its efficacy. Is the efficacy of natural farming methods adequately captured and scientifically proven?
I would say that it's still not proven yet to the extent it should be, and there's a big scope of actually documenting the benefits of natural farming. So what we have done, it's a very small step in that direction, but more science needs to be established about natural farming. Universities need to do more research, and then the credibility of this methodology can be established, as well as that will also provide an impetus to the market forces to come up with techniques or practices which can help cover the drawbacks, some of the drawbacks such as availability of inputs, yield reduction associated with natural farming.
Right. Some years ago, the state of Andhra Pradesh had this ambitious goal of turning almost, its 10 or 11 million acres of farmland into natural farms. Is something like that possible? Is it even desirable, to convert, lock, stock, and barrel all your farmland and to bring them into natural farming practices?
Just to let you know, Andhra Pradesh is today the front runner in the country in terms of natural farming. Almost, as per the last data from 2022, I think almost 10% of the farmers have transitioned to pure natural farming practices, and it has one of the highest hectares of land in the country among the states, which has transitioned to natural farming. Now, as far as the goals are concerned, I would again say that pure natural farming and 100% transition is more of a desirable goal, but we don't see it as a near term or a medium term goal, because the drawbacks are many, and still it's a practice in a very infant stage. There's not too much science established around it, and secondly, the market forces, like I keep saying, is absent, because inputs are now made on the farmland itself. So there's no input company who can push it. There's a yield drop. There's no one to cover for that drawback. And the output, as far as output is concerned, it is premium priced. So you don't have a huge swathe of customers who are into those outputs.
When you say that the farmers have to make all the inputs themselves, how is it possible for a farmer, who typically has 1 or 2 acres of land, to be able to produce that much amount of inputs from his farm naturally?
Again, very good question. So when we were on the field studying our partner organizations, what we were also surprised with is that a novel solution has been created to handle this obstacle, which they call Bio Input Resource Centers, in short BRCs. These BRCs are established by farmers, maybe per village or per 2-3 villages depending on the population. And in these BRCs are responsible for making the inputs, and they sell it to the other farmers in the region. It is sold at a profit. It's a for-profit organizations, you can say.
So who runs this?
It is run by the farmers only.
Okay.
Only.
So it's a collective. So farmers from, say, 5 or 6 villages come together and create a unit which produces these bio inputs?
There are different models. Right. So one model is where a collective can come together, or a FPO, and they can form a BRC. There's another model in which you can have a village level entrepreneur, which is a single person who can establish a BRC, because BRC again is a profit making organization. You sell produce at profit to the farmer. The only difference is that because these fertilizers etc. are made with animal residues etc. So they are very cheap. So the inputs are again cheap for the farmer, and the village level entrepreneur sells it as a profit.
But again, you need a great deal of cooperation within the community to do this, and I can visualize a lot of issues, say regarding quality, for instance. Who monitors quality? Whether this is what this entrepreneur who set up a BRC, if he is producing inputs of a good quality or not, whether it works or not. So how do you tackle these situations?
Yeah. So here the role of the on-ground support organization is very essential. And again, when we asked the farmers what are the major bottlenecks with natural farming, the top 3 or 4 issues which came out was lack of knowledge, lack of training and support, and lack of and the extra time and effort required in preparing inputs. So to cover the first 2 bottlenecks, which is knowledge and training and support, you need on-ground support in the form of NGOs or government extension services who help the farmers in this transition, and they are the ones who have been supporting the BRCs and helping them in this journey, in making sure the quality is up to the mark, in helping them making these inputs, because they don't even know how to prepare these inputs initially. So these on-ground organizations come into play for this.
So you need another layer of NGOs who have to handhold these farmers to transition to natural farming.
This is a must requirement until we reach a critical mass where the entire the more and more farmers automatically start following it. We require these on-ground support staff to help the farmers in this transition, because farmers have been following a different method of farming for decades, for like long time enough. Now asking them to follow a very different methodology of farming, it requires training, support, knowledge transfer, awareness, and for that you need presence of these ground organizations.
Right.
So that's again a requirement.
Ankur Sanghai, thank you very much for joining us on the Plate podcast today and talking to us about the challenges associated with natural farming.
Thanks a lot, Vivek.
Until we meet next time with another issue around agriculture and agribusiness, goodbye and God bless.